I recently ranked all of the Final Destination deaths into a tier list. This was movies 1 to 5, but today we will be talking about the new Final Destination film, Final Destination Bloodlines. Massive spoiler warning, obviously this is a new film, and I will be talking about all of the deaths in a little bit of detail. Obviously I have only seen this film once, so I'm going to have to try to remember the best that I can. I may get a few things wrong, they may not be in the right order. If I miss anything out, then I am sorry. I don't always have the best memory, but I am going to try my hardest. So I am going to use the same tier list format that I used for the rest of the deaths in all the other films, just so it can fit in nicely and so we can look at our tier list all together properly at the end. If you want a rundown of all the tiers, then maybe watch my other video first, but essentially S is the best and D is the worst. This is your last spoiler warning. There will be spoilers from now on. So in this new film there are some accident scenes that don't actually lead to any deaths, and I am going to include them into this list just so we've got more to talk about, and because these are big scenes and they do include some pretty crazy stuff, it definitely gets your anxiety going. So let's start off, but we are starting off with the premonition scene. So the premonition scene in Final Destination Bloodlines actually ends up not being a premonition from our main character. She's having a recurring nightmare, and this premonition is her nightmare, and it ends up being a premonition that her grandma had like 60 years ago or something like that. We also find out that she did end up saving everyone in this premonition, so nobody actually died in this way, but everybody who she saved ended up having death come back round for them in some sort of other way. We didn't actually get to see that. I was really hoping when they were speaking about the other people that we would maybe get a little montage of a few of the ways that they died, but unfortunately we didn't. So in this past premonition and reoccurring nightmare that we see at the start of the film, we follow a couple as they are going into a brand new building. It is opening night and it's kind of like a really futuristic style building that has a restaurant on the top and a bar and people are dancing. I have definitely seen buildings like this in real life. It's like a really thin building, then it has a kind of sphere that's made of glass so people can kind of see over the city. When the couple go in, the girl Iris seems to be a bit wary and is kind of noticing some things that aren't quite sitting right with her. Like when they get into the lift, she realizes that it is over capacity. She notices all sorts of hazards. Her and her boyfriend go out onto the balcony. He actually proposes to her, but whilst this is happening there's also a child on the balcony. He flips a coin and it ends up basically like going through one of the building's vents and leading a chain of events of destruction and disaster. This whole building ends up collapsing. The people are dancing on the dance floor, which is made of glass. That ends up falling through. There ends up being a fire. The lift ends up breaking down as expected. After some of the floor has broken and loads of people have fallen out, the whole sphere that is on the really thin building turns and everybody is falling out, and just loads of stuff happens. Everybody dies. But then we see a young girl wake up and she's not in this premonition at all. This premonition is also set in the 60s. She realizes that it is a nightmare of her grandma when she was younger, because the girl's name in the nightmare is Iris and that's the name of her grandmother. She finds out more details when she goes home back to her family. I don't want to get too much into all of my nitpicky things about this film in this video because I have put them all in my review, but I have to say something that did let a lot of these down, and the reason why some of these may be ranked lower than you would have thought is unfortunately because of the really bad CGI. Compared to the opening scenes and the opening premonitions from the previous film, I do think this one probably would go in last place. So I am going to put this one in the middle tier. I'm going to put this one in nice try death, especially because nobody actually ended up dying. Okay, so the next death we have is Iris. This is Iris in the present day. So Stephanie, the girl who is having the reoccurring nightmares, she goes back home to find out more about it and ultimately ends up going to her grandma's house, although it's like a cabin that she has completely rigged so it's death proof, because she is really paranoid because of this premonition that she had so long ago, and she knows that death is after her. So she has just completely decked her whole place out and is super paranoid. She has found a way to stay one step ahead of death, but when she's telling all this to Stephanie and she's saying that death is now coming after their family, Stephanie quite understandably doesn't believe her because she does seem quite extreme. So Iris does the only thing that she thinks that she can do to make Stephanie believe her, which is let her guard down and let death take her. As Stephanie is leaving, Iris walks out the door after her and just basically tells her to step back and watch. She lets her guard down and things happen. The wind starts coming, things are falling off her house. The little northwest sign thing on top of her house actually ends up impaling her through the head. This was a really short death scene, but I think it did work well as a jump scare and was quite brutal as one of the first ones that we saw, so I am also going to put this one in nice try death. Next we have Howard. So this is Stephanie and her brother's uncle. This is the first longer death scene that we get in this film. So it all starts at a family barbecue. So there are a few hazards around, a few things to throw us off. There is lots of people jumping on the trampoline and there's a rake underneath the trampoline. We can see them getting closer and closer to it. There was also a smashed glass and something actually went into the ice, which was put into the drinks and passed around. Obviously we also had the barbecue, which they were really trying to get going, which we thought maybe could have caused a fire. Ultimately the drink that had the glass in it got spilt on the floor. Howard stepped right on the broken glass, so he stumbled and ended up falling over. There was a beer on the side that knocked over and somehow ended up causing a inflatable to start inflating inside a bucket. This caused the rakes and stuff to fall down. Somebody actually moved the rake and put it away, but this obviously ended up not being such a good thing because the rake falls on a lawnmower, starts the lawnmower, and the lawnmower ends up going straight onto Howard's head when he is laying down. We don't get to see too much of this because the lawnmower is covering his head, so we just see a bit of blood before it cuts away. This is a really good scene. I would have loved it obviously with practical effects, but I would love all of these practical effects, so I'm not going to keep going on about that. This was definitely quite interesting to watch play out for the first time, so I think I am going to put this one in forever iconic, because I do think when we think back at this film in the future, this will probably be one of the scenes that we do remember. The next scene is actually not a death scene, but it is one that alludes to a death. You do think that he is going to die this way, especially because the poster is actually something to do with this as well, and that is a scene with Erik in the piercing shop. So in this scene it is just after Erik's dad Howard has died, but Erik ends up coming into work as a favour, but then he is told he has to close up by his not so nice boss. He's in the middle of piercing someone's tongue at this point, which obviously is kind of anxiety inducing anyway. There were some really cringy and cheesy moments in this scene, some parts that were just a bit too silly maybe for me. So his last client leaves and he is alone just closing up in the piercing shop. He's cleaning and he puts on his sad playlist. In the piercing shop there are loads of like chains all up on the ceiling, and one of the chains actually ends up coming loose and attaching itself to his septum piercing. This chain gets stuck in the fan that is slowly going round, and he can't get this chain off of his septum piercing, and the chain is going up higher and higher as it's getting more wound around the fan. As this is happening, a fire ends up breaking out. There is cleaning products and all sorts of chemicals being spilt onto the floor. He is kind of slipping around. Also, you really think that this is going to get ripped out and then he's just going to fall down and burn alive. He does actually end up getting it out. Then the scene just cuts, and I wasn't sure if we were supposed to just assume he was dead or not, but then we do end up seeing him in the next scene. I'm going to put this one in nice try death because of course he didn't actually die, but it is quite a memorable and interesting scene. Next is Erik's sister Julia, and this is the scene that is basically just after the piercing shop scene. Erik is walking along the street with Stephanie, who is telling him he needs to be paranoid and telling him that death is just around the corner. There's a few different hazards that she's telling him to stay away from, one of them being some boys are kicking a football around and she says be careful, you know, you might get a football to the face or something like that. Erik is kind of making fun of her. Then his sister actually comes out their house. She is going for a run. She runs to the street and a football does hit her in the head, and it actually hits her into a wheelie bin that is just being picked up by the garbage truck and put in the back of the garbage truck. The others of course start running after the garbage truck trying to get it to stop, because once she's in there it starts compacting. Unfortunately she just ends up getting crushed to death. This was quite quick for Julia because we weren't expecting her to die. It also kind of felt like it was kind of mocking itself or like a joke death. I'm not sure because of obviously everything they were saying before. It was very aware of itself. It was very, very silly in the way that it was done. I wasn't a massive fan, so I am going to put this one in lacks creativity because I don't want to put it in the last tier, but for me it just couldn't be any higher. I definitely think this one had a slight more serious tone in areas. I did like some of the jokes, how the garbage truck man was listening to music and that's why they couldn't hear him. Like, I liked that part because music's always been a massive part in this franchise, especially as a comedy element. I think that was absolutely fine. Seeing her being crushed, but the CGI being quite bad, it just wasn't the best for me. So now we have Erik's actual death, and this kind of links in with Bobby's death as well, because he dies very shortly after. So they go to the hospital with a new plan, and that is to flatline Bobby and then bring him back to life, because they found out that someone else actually also did this and did it successfully, and it actually broke their chain, their curse for death coming after them. Bobby is allergic to peanuts, so Erik gets him some peanut butter cups out of the vending machine. Then they go into another room. In this room there is a massive MRI machine. There is no one else in this room, so Bobby starts eating the peanut butter cups. What they don't realise is that the MRI machine is turned on and it somehow has malfunctioned so that it's being really strong. I didn't know this about MRI machines, but apparently they're very magnetic. I don't know if that's actually what happens in real life, but because it malfunctioned, it became really magnetic, which caused loads of Erik's piercings to be ripped out of him and all of the piercings just to fly towards the MRI machine. Some of his other bodily piercings started being drawn towards the machine, and he actually ended up being pulled right towards the machine, and there was just like a tiny hole where I guess the person goes into the MRI. A metal wheelchair was also drawn to the MRI machine that was behind him, and it ended up basically kind of pushing his midsection into the MRI machine, and the chair just kind of went through him. I think, again, when thinking back to this film, that is definitely going to be one of the deaths that sticks in my mind, so I am going to put this one in forever iconic. So straight after those events, Bobby is still in the room. He is having an allergic reaction to the peanuts. He manages to get his EpiPen and use it, but literally a few seconds after, the vending machine is actually opposite this room, and obviously it's very metal. I thought the whole vending machine was just going to come and smush him, but it was the metal wires that kind of hold all of the snacks in place, flew towards him, and one of them went straight through his head. I do feel like having this death straight after Erik's meant that Erik's kind of overshadowed his death a little bit more. We're definitely going to remember Erik's death more than Bobby's death, so I am going to put Bobby's death in nice try death. Second to last is Darlene. This is Stephanie and her brother Charlie's mum. The three of them decide to go back to Iris's old cabin to kind of stay away from death and to hold up for a little while to try and figure out what the hell they're going to do, because everybody is dying really quickly. They arrive outside the cabin and it's really windy. There is a massive fence all around the cabin. As they are literally outside, a lamp just comes and smashes into Darlene. This happened really quickly and is definitely the most forgettable, so I am going to put this one in the last tier. And lastly, we have a double death of Stephanie and her brother Charlie. This is the final scene. They are outside on the street and a train ends up derailing, coming into their street. They are running away from it. The train stops. They manage to just miss getting hit by this train, but as they think they are safe, loads of logs come off the top of the train, and that is ultimately what kills them. I have to say, I was hoping for logs in this one, but definitely not this way. In my opinion, this scene was very silly. The train and the logs were definitely the worst CGI. I am going to put this one in lacks creativity, just because I feel like I can't put it in what happened again, because it is one I'm going to remember, but maybe not for the best reasons. So that is my ranking of all of the death scenes and accident scenes in Final Destination Bloodlines. Do let me know what you think of my ranking. I know that maybe for some people this ranking may be a little bit harsh. I did actually try to be quite fair in this ranking. I tried to look at them kind of on paper. Of course, some aspects did just kind of override them, like the overly comical script and the bad CGI. I know that some people won't mind this, and I know that a lot of people have already said that a lot of these deaths would go in S tier for them on my previous video, so I'm sorry if I haven't ranked them where you would put them, but this is just my opinion. So this is my previous tier list, and with the new ones added in, so you can kind of see it all together as a whole. You can kind of see what my favourite ones are and where everything is placed. I've had a lot of fun making tier lists recently, so if there is any other ones that you would like me to do, then please do let me know. I have done a Saw Trap tier list. I just need to edit that. I've had it filmed for quite a while, but I know it's going to take me a really long time to edit, so I have been putting that off just because I need to prioritise actually getting videos out. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another one soon.